Okay.
And we designed a paddle centre.
We're ready to go.
Yes, thank you. Welcome to this public meeting of the Northern Beaches Local Planning Panel held on the 7th of February 2024. My name is Peter Visco and I'm the chair of the panel, and with me on the panel today are Robert Hussey and Marcus Sainsbury, who are both expert members of the panel, and Peter Cotton, the community representative. This meeting gives an opportunity to interested parties to make verbal submissions concerning the matters in which they are interested. The panel has been briefed with all written submissions, so it's unnecessary to read written submissions, and the appropriate course is to fasten on the main points that you wish to make. Normally, speakers are limited to 3 minutes to present their oral submissions. If, however, it is desired to go beyond that for a reasonable time, then application should be made to me as the chair to consider whether to grant that. On the agenda today, public meeting agenda, are 5 items. There are also 2 non-public meeting items by way of DA and a matter concerning a proposed delegation. I'll identify the public meeting items and the non-public meeting DA items. The first of the public meeting items is DA 2023/0720 relating to Vista Avenue, Balgala Heights, for alterations and additions to a recreational facility outdoors, which are tennis courts. Item 4.2 on the agenda is DA 2023/0281 concerning 3/43A Ethel Street, Seaforth, the demolition works and construction of an attached dual occupancy. Item 4.3 DA 2023/0275 concerning 4/43A Ethel Street, Seaforth, which is next door to the one I earlier referred to, for demolition works and construction of an attached dual occupancy and also, I think, strata subdivision. Item 4.4 DA 2023/1458 at 49 Pittwater Road, Manly, for demolition works and construction of a studio with associated landscaping. And finally, of the public meeting items is DA item 4.5 DA 2023/1232 relating to 397 Condamine Street, Allambie Heights, for alterations and additions to a childcare centre. The non-public meeting items, 5.1 DA 2022/2199 19 Sydney Road, Manly, for demolition works and construction of shop top housing. Item 5.2 DA 2023/1710 43 Sydney Road, Manly, use of premises as a business premises, laundromat in fact, and fit out and signage. And there is at item 5.3 a matter of a proposed delegation to the Council's Chief Executive Officer, General Manager, for variations to a development standard in excess of 10% of height of buildings and floor space ratio for Class 2.9 buildings. The agenda contains an explanation as to why certain DAs are non-public meeting items. That is because there is a statutory direction by the Minister of Planning and Public Spaces which states the panel is only required to hold a public meeting where the development application has attracted 10 or more unique submissions by way of objection. These applications do not satisfy that criterion. There are a number of speakers who have registered to speak in relation to the public meeting items. In relation to item 4.1, which is the one we're going to start with, for Vista Avenue, Balgala Heights, there are no objectors or submitters who are registered to speak. For the applicant, there are 3 people who have indicated they don't wish to address the panel, but they're available to answer any questions, and they are Eugene Duplessis, architect of Duplessis Architects, Ross McLean, the Tennis Club president, and Andrew Cheong, the Tennis Club Vice President. Could I ask the panel whether they, in fact, have any questions in relation to either any of those people?
No questions, Chair.
No. Very good, thank you. Well, then, in those circumstances, we thank those three people for making themselves available. The panel has no questions for them, so we'll pass on to the next item. The next item, which is item 4.2, 3/43A Ethel Street, Seaforth, the demolition works and construction of an attached dual occupancy. And I think that can conveniently be dealt with to some extent in conjunction with the next item, 4.3, 4/43A Ethel Street, Seaforth, which is next door, also for demolition works and construction of an attached dual occupancy and strata subdivision. There is one registered object, or two registered objectors in relation to both those matters, and they are the same two registered objectors, who are Faye Sterling and Michael Ioannou, and then there are a number of people who are registered to speak for the applicants. So I'll go first of all to the registered objectors for both those matters, who are Faye Sterling and Michael Ioannou, and I would invite them to address the panel if they wish to do so.
Yeah, hi there, Peter. This is Michael. Yeah, nice to meet you all, and thanks for your time. Apologies, my camera's on the blink, so it's probably best for you don't see my ugly mug anyway. But yeah, I'd like to just share screen if that's all right. Is that a possibility?
Yes, of course.
I see
if you could just give me a moment, I just need to change the settings, so I'll do that now.
Thanks.
It may take a minute to do. I'll just mention whilst that's being done that the panel acknowledges the traditional custodians of the lands on which we gather and pays respects to the elders past and present. And also note that the minutes of the panel held on the 13th of December 2023 were adopted by the chair and have been posted on Council's website. So Heidi.
Yes, the settings have been updated, so if you'd like to try now.
Yes, thank you.
All right, how's that? Is everyone able to see my screen?
Yes. This is the
All right,
written
great.
submission, I think, is it? That you...
Yeah, this is the one that went up, so I appreciate, you know...
Yeah, we have been briefed with that. Thank you.
All right, great. Thanks very much. So yeah, I just wanted to skim through a few of the pieces here. So first one around the owner's consent, really, I'm assuming everyone's read it, but with the right of way, that's very narrow, as you can see in the picture. There's also a limitation of 2.5 tonne based on the previous development, and the design of it is not to handle big construction trucks and the like. And there's also sort of 3 DAs in the back, 6 houses that use the same laneway that have been submitted, and really just appreciate if the council can consider collaboration on that front if DAs are approved, that the relevant cumulative impact is assessed and an appropriate traffic management plan for all of those to proceed if they do in parallel is taken into account. The second point raised is around view loss, and I've just taken some excerpts from your agenda document and the relevant responses from council to represent those here. In particular, the breach of the number of stories is proposed as 3 instead of 2, which is the norm, and the other sort of side setbacks and bulk breaches that do occur in this proposal. From our perspective, the principle of view sharing versus view loss is devastating for us. As you can see, appreciate the line of sight poles that have gone up. This is number 3 of 43A in the red lines and number 4 of 43A in the blue lines. And yeah, it's a devastating loss for us, and the legislation around this obviously supports the need for residential development and public spaces, including harbour and foreshores, to have minimised disruption. In our case, it's totally lost, and so from that perspective, appreciate if that could be something that's taken into further consideration. What I've done here, I felt that the council submission of the image, which is very wide angle and taken from the very southerly end of our balcony, is not really representative of the true perspective. And this image here, which I have a better, clear one without the lines on, is taken from our passage directly over 3 of 43A, which the roof will be at the same height, will extend out, and then will be squared off. So what this represents here is just, yeah, that line of sight from our passage, and that this is the relevant view loss that we will receive from that DA that's been put through for 3 of 43A Ethel Street, and it totally devastates our view in its entirety of the spit and harbour areas and all the foreshores. Moving on to privacy. So in the same context, the same views from our living area in this picture, this image above, as well as this one here taken from our passage. This is the area where the proposed upper level decks, which are going to be north facing on the proposal 3 of 43A, would look directly into our living, dining and kitchen area and down our passage into our main room. From that perspective, it's the last remaining privacy within our house or our unit. And that's something that really needs to be considered. There are 8 decks in the proposal and multiple indoor living areas. And the necessity to have these upper decks facing directly into our living area, which is floor to ceiling glass doors across the width of our apartment, is something that's, you know, extremely invasive and something that needs to be removed from my perspective. This is, as I said, the only remaining private area within our units, and it's where we spend the majority of our time, including now that we work from home a fair bit and make use of this amenity all the time. If I look to the south side, just giving you some background, we used to look out to the hills here, and this is what's really boxed us in. On the other side is, sorry, this is our north side, and this is a development that's completing now of 21 units, of which 12 units are looking directly into our master bedroom and north-facing side. And so the only area, as I said, we have for privacy now is on the south-facing side, where the proposal has these 2 upper-level decks on 3 of 43A, which would look directly into our living area. I've talked about the assessment of these 3 DAs. So the 6 houses that use that same battle axe behind us, 3 of them have put in DAs in conjunction. And yeah, if anything goes ahead in parallel, it'll be a significant challenge to have that addressed. And just a pointer, so I would, just a suggestion to expand your hours for anything that does go ahead. School pickup time, 3 p.m. onwards. The entire street is backed up, as you can see below. That's a common occurrence during school term, so it really is just some additional feedback. Beyond privacy and loss of view, the major concern that remains is just my partner. She has an autoimmune disease, which comes out in the form of a chronic cough and respiratory issues. So any construction that does go ahead, in particular when southerly winds will be effective, those are very strong and gusty, that would blow directly into our premise and is of serious health concern to my partner. So it's just something that I would like to be considered as well as part of your review, understanding that there can be things done to minimize that impact, but it's never foolproof, and it's a serious issue that we need to consider in the outcomes of any of these DAs. And the last bit, I appreciate perhaps the panel have been around the area to look through the battle axe and the driveway, but we do happily invite and encourage you to come and have a look at the real perspective of the impacts from our unit, and happy to receive you any time with any forewarning so that we can plan ahead. I think that's about it, and I'm not sure on time limitations, but that's probably it, I think, for 3 minutes.
Thank you.
So appreciate your time. Thanks for that. Michael, yeah.
Thank you. Does the panel have any questions?
Could I ask you, with your experience on the driveway, does that work efficiently, safely and effectively?
Well, I mean, I must say that everyone's amicable and we're all amicable to each other. So when there are two cars going in or out, that works effectively for a car. When a delivery vehicle or a removals vehicle tries to get in and out and navigate, that does not work effectively, to the extent that there's been directional mirrors, garage roofs, they've all been hit and broken before. Our neighbour downstairs in Unit 1 of 43 Ethel Street, prior to them putting up a significant solid brick wall, there used to be a fence there, and that got knocked over a number of times just simply by smaller removal and delivery vehicles. And so from that context, I would say that the 2.5 tonne limit that's set there is there for a reason, not only for the surface that was never designed to handle excavation vehicles and trucks, but also for the purpose that it's just impossible to turn around there. If you bring a ute-in and try and turn around in the back of the alley, it's really difficult unless you start leveraging different portions of the driveway and garages of you know, owners in some of those spaces. Yep.
Thank you.
That's right.
Does the panel have any other questions? Okay, then if not, thank you, Mr. Ioane. I think that Faye Sterling was also registered to speak. Is she here and does she wish to speak?
She's my partner and she was happy to delegate to me, so thank you. Very
good, thank you. Well, then we'll, in that case, turn to the other registered speakers. First of all, for 3/43A Ethel Street, the registered speakers are Annie Gibbons and James Gibbons, who are owners, and Greg Boston of Boston Blythe Fleming, speaking on behalf of the applicant. So whichever, I don't know whether those three have discussed between themselves how they'd like to proceed or what order they'd like to proceed in, but I invite them in whatever order they prefer to address the panel.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Look, I'll speak on behalf of my clients who are here today to answer any questions that might arise. But if the panel has no questions, then it'll be my submission that we ask you to consider. I'll touch briefly initially just on the concerns raised by the neighbours and then go to the assessment report and the draft conditions. In relation to the cumulative impact, I note that conditions of consent on both number 3 and 4 Ethel Street go towards construction traffic management requirements, including the preparation of quite a detailed report. That's condition 15 in the draft agenda. There's also a requirement for a demolition traffic management plan, which is condition 27, and then the standard conditions in relation to both pre and post dilapidation reporting, which again are conditions 28 and 43 in the draft consent. We believe that the detail of that required construction traffic management plan, which is comprehensive, will appropriately deal with the issue of potential conflicts that might arise in relation to the use of the existing right-of-way. In relation to view loss and stories and height, and I'll just share a screen here if I may. The building has been designed to sit comfortably below the 8.5 metre height standard, and certainly relative to the right of way, the proposal sits substantially below the 8.5. So in terms of not only compliance with the 8.5 metre height standard, but a more skillful design in terms of absolutely minimising the height of the building, we believe that based on the view analysis contained within the assessment report and also the detailed view analysis within the supplementary statement which I prepared and submitted dated the 8th of November, that the panel would agree with council staff that a view sharing outcome is achieved and that the proposal is reasonable under the circumstances. In relation to privacy, I note that there is a draft condition number 22 in the consent, which we raise no objections to, which requires a fixed privacy screen. to be provided along the northern or back edge of that upper level terrace, which was the concern raised by the neighbour. We believe that the imposition of that condition appropriately deals with that issue. The panel will be aware that there's two conditions in the draft consent, conditions 14 and 16, which go towards the provision of swept path analysis for the proposed garage, and also confirmation in terms of the dimensions of the proposed garage. The panel may well have received some additional information which was forwarded to them this morning, which shows a swept path analysis in relation to being able to enter and exit the garaging and exit the site in a forward direction, and also confirms the dimensions of the proposed garage, which are compliant with the Australian standard. Whilst the DCP does not specifically require bicycle parking for a dwelling house, we believe that there's sufficient space on that deck 01 of both of those dwellings to easily accommodate any bicycles, and that the garbage bins could be stored down in that courtyard area. I'll share one more image with the panel, if I may, and that is just the site analysis plan. Is that sharing?
No.
Okay, I'll try again. So I'm not sure if the panel have been down on the site, but where my cursor is here, I'm not sure if you can see it. I might blow it up a little bit. So access from Ethel Street is where my cursor is. And as you swing around the right of way towards the subject property and the property that we're about to consider in the next agenda item, the real pinch point in relation to manoeuvring is the existing garage located on the subject property, which can be seen where my cursor is. The proposal seeks to demolish that structure and provide a 5.8 metre, and I'll just, sorry, that's next door. There you go. So the existing garage structure actually comes out towards the alignment of the existing 3.01 metre right-of-way. And the removal of that structure does two things. One, it gets rid of that pinch point completely. Secondly, it creates a 5.8 metre zone in which cars can actually pass each other, noting that 5.8 metres is the minimum aisle width for a basement car parking arrangement. And to that extent, for the first time, there'll actually be an ability for vehicles to pass in front of both number 3 and number 4 Ethel Street. So to that extent, we say that the applications before you today provide an opportunity to significantly enhance the utility of that existing right-of-way, and certainly also the safety of its use. And although some of that manoeuvring won't occur within the alignment of the existing right-of-way, that's been a circumstance that's existed, I would say, since creation of the right-of-way, where vehicles just pull off where they can to enable that passing manoeuvre to occur. So to that extent, we think that not only have we demonstrated that vehicles can actually enter and exit each of the car spaces, but by removing that existing pinch point and providing that 5.8 metre clear width, that access and egress for all of the properties that utilise this western portion of the right-of-way is significantly enhanced. The final thing I'll say is we've reviewed the draft conditions and raised no fundamental concerns in relation to them. However, we do ask that the panel, based on the information that we've provided this morning, look at potentially deleting conditions 14 and 16, and that is for the provision of swept path analysis, and 16 is for the provision of plans showing the dimensions of the garaging, and also condition 15, which is the construction traffic management plan. Now, bullet point 7, which is on page 98 of the report refers to builders utilising the basement when it becomes available, and obviously there's no basement associated with this development. I think it's just a standard requirement that is incorporated for residential flat buildings. We just asked that that particular bullet point be struck through. Apart from that, as I said, we don't raise any objections to the balance of the conditions. We're aware of the geotechnical report and the requirements in relation to how the excavation occurs and vibration monitoring, and we ask that the panel endorse the recommendation before them. Happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Boston, thank you for that. In relation to the 2.5 tonne weight limit, the sign at the entrance to the right-of-way, is there anything you'd like to say about that?
Oh, look, all I'd say in relation to that is in terms of that, I'm not sure whether that's a requirement of...
Can I speak to that?
No, not at the moment.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Mr. Boston.
Oh, that was my client.
I'm sorry. If you wish to consult your client or have her answer it, that's all right.
Yeah, sure.
I just felt it would, I thought it would be better to have the historical input. So I'll go back to Greg in a minute, but my name's Annie Gibbons. I'm obviously the client, the owner of 343A. I purchased this property off my family who owned it for 42 years, had a development application approved of a higher limit already, and which influenced strongly why we actually purchased the property. It's taken us 15 years to be able to raise enough money while raising 5 children to be able to do so. That sign is actually just a sign that one of the residents put up themselves. It's a private laneway. It actually has no bearings on anything. It is not appropriate. It could be removed at any time. No one has sought to do so just because someone put up a sign. So the information that was actually presented was incorrect. Over a couple of years ago, before the current tenants in 343 owned their property, the 8 residents of the units of the driveway actually combined, we paid $10,000 each to put down a very strong reinforced driveway. Greg might be able to give the technicals, but my understanding is it's 15 centimetres deep and so strong it could be covering 40 tonnes of load. It was the person who actually organised it for the driveway was a professional concreter in his professional life. So that sign is bearing of no significance. It's also quite hilarious for us because a ambulance weighs 5.5 tonnes, for example, of which we've had many, and no signs of damage. During the time that I've lived in this property, which is over 50 years now, we have also seen properties number 1, number 2 and number 4 build extensive developments with no problems of trucks and negotiating. We all need to be courteous. We also bought the property, and owners of 43 and 41 would both know that a DA has previously gone in and got approved back in 2008 to a similar sort of scale, actually a little bit higher, and that would have directly influenced the sale of their property. We know 43 was acutely aware of that when sold to number 3, and having 2 small cottage houses on number 3 and number 4 is obvious that those developments would happen at some time. We have, as owners, tried to be as respectful about privacy. We are now inconvenienced by those 3-storey developments. The 2 units used to be 1-storey houses, and they built 3-storey.
Ms. Gibbons, I think we're just dealing with the weight capacity of the right-of-way just at the moment.
Okay, no problem at all. So that's the weight capacity.
Thank you for that.
It's just a sign.
Yeah, thank you very much for that comprehensive answer.
So,
yes,
Mr. Chair, look, I don't have anything to add further to that. However, if it assists the panel at all, just 2 points. One is the condition 28, which relates to the pre-construction dilapidation reporting. The panel may well want to specifically and separately identify the existing driveway as an element which is subject to that dilapidation report. Yeah. And that would provide some certainty to the neighbours and anyone who benefits from it in relation to any impacts that might arise from this development or any other development along the right-of-way. And secondly to that, just on the bottom of page 51 of your agenda, which has site history, and it lists an alterations and additions there that was withdrawn in 2022. For completeness, DA 78/2008 is the approval that Annie was referring to, which was for a duplex and swimming pool, and it was approved on the 20th of October 2008. So there has in fact been a previous approval for a duplex on this particular property.
Thank you. Does the panel have any other questions?
Could I check how wide is the right-of-way handle?
Yes, the survey plan that was submitted in support of number 4, which is next door, has a survey there, and it says that the right of way is 3.05 metres wide by survey.
Okay, so that's different to the width you've now provided in the adjacent to the subject properties. So that doesn't allow any passing in that fairly long distance of the handle. And there's no opportunity to reverse back into Elk Street because it's pretty busy too. So with the increase in vehicles there for the 3 properties, the one that's also there, the cumulative effect of that probably reduces the safety and the effectiveness of that handle. Would you agree?
Oh, look, what I would say to that is that the proposal does in fact provide a passing opportunity that doesn't exist, albeit it will be outside the alignment of the existing right-of-way, which is a circumstance which occurs now in relation to the residential flat building, which is to the west of the access handle and which occurs along the entire length of this access handle. And I guess, you know, it could be remedied simply by increasing the width of the right-of-way adjacent to these 2 particular properties.
Is that a simple solution?
Oh, look, I think that'd be a simple solution, and noting that it's simply driveway in any event, I think it would provide significant betterment, and I wouldn't think that my clients would raise any fundamental concern in relation to that.
So where were you talking about widening it? Is that within the handle?
Yeah, so let me just...
Because at the present time, when I had a look at it on the weekend, there was vehicles parked alongside the units at the front. And when I walked up the handle, the lady offered to shift the car if she thought I was coming out, which I wasn't. I can't quite see where you've got the opportunity to provide a passing bay.
Yeah, so if you look, I think my screen has frozen and I can't share, but if you look at the garage plan, for instance, you'll see that there's a 5.8 metre setback between the front of the garaging and the rear boundary of the property. Actually, I'll just share again. I think I've come back. So currently the existing garage sits in this location. So there's sort of a pinch point of about 3 metres, just over 3 metres in this location. This is the easement, the existing right-of-way shown hatched, which is the 3.05 metre wide. And what the proposal does on this site and on the adjoining property, the garaging is actually back to 6.2 metres. So there's actually, you know, even wider. So what I was suggesting is that this portion of the site within the garages on both properties could potentially be changed to a right-of-way, benefiting the same people who currently benefit from the existing right-of-way. And that would mean that the right-of-way would go from 3.05 to 5.8 metres in front of number 3 and 6.2 metres in front of number 4 Ethel Street. And that would provide a material benefit in relation to all users of the right-of-way as it relates to its western end.
No, I was trying to find out how wide the handle is. the connecting section past the flats or the units that connects to Elk Street, where there's no apparent passing lane. How wide's that?
My understanding is that that is around that same 3 metres in width, and that it doesn't extend in front of the garaging associated with the apartments. But Annie, have you got anything to add to that?
No. Previously to the units, they used to have a parking in the front, and now we've had an additional 4 garage spaces plus 1 tenant parks on the private driveway as well, blocking traffic. But that, my understanding is, since that was approved, that's, you know, can be making it tight, or they could be asked to move during the development. But the lane is the lane. There will be more movement out at the back of the lane where our developments are, as Greg's referred to with knocking down our current driveway. It'll actually make it fantastic for developing because it'll keep people off the lane. The biggest point which you are referring to is in front of the units. Saying that, they built 2 3-story units in that, you know, and we got around it as well. So I can't see how it would be any different than what we went through as back neighbours when they developed those single houses into 3 units each. They had a lot of traffic there that we all seem to live around.
The point is that if a vehicle comes in up the laneway and gets past the area adjacent to the units, it's only a bit over 3 metres wide, and a car coming from your garage won't see it till it gets around the corner. So they're heading for a head-on collision. Obviously, they won't have that, but they will only have a passing.
Yeah, we have a mirror there.
Somebody's got to reverse.
I can answer that. Yeah, so look, the answer to that is that there is a large convex mirror right on that corner, which makes it very clear as you're entering the driveway past those apartments in relation to what is happening in front of number 3 and 4. And likewise, as you're coming out of number 3 and 4, you can see clearly all the way down to Ethel Street. So you can see whether, if there is in fact a car coming up the driveway there. So that is a measure that is already in place. And its utility will only be enhanced by what's proposed, with the ability for vehicles to actually come out of the garage, straighten up on the right of way, and then pull over onto this driveway apron that's being created by the proposal. So it's a valid concern that you raise, and we say that it's currently being managed as best it can with the convex mirror. But what is proposed is going to substantially improve the utility and the safety of that right of way. And if the panel is of a mind to impose a condition requiring the localised widening of the right of way adjacent to that northern driveway apron of numbers 3 and number 4. That no fundamental objection would be raised to such a requirement.
Okay. There's no subdivision proposed for this DA, is there?
That's correct.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Does the panel have any other questions?
No questions, Chair.
No, thank you. Then, Ms. Gibbons, you've already addressed the panel. Is there anything else you wish to put?
No, not at this time.
Thank you. I think that James Gibbon is also registered as a speaker. Is he here, and does he wish to speak?
I'm here, but I think Greg has represented everything sufficiently. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Gibbons. Well, then, thank you very much to the speakers for their succinct submissions. We'll move on to the extent we need to item 4.3 on the agenda, which is 4/43A Ethel Street, Seaforth. Again, as I indicated earlier, the registered objectors are Michael Ioannou and Faye Sterling. Mr. Ioannou, is there anything further you wish to add to what you previously said?
All the same common themes reside, thank you. The only one I'd just say is for number 4 of 43A, the design of that construction proposal has been more considerate and skillful with regards to the upper level. They don't have any decks facing north, and therefore from a privacy perspective, there's no issue from our side. There's still obviously the same view loss and the other concerns that are raised, but from that perspective, we're thankful that from a privacy side, there's no upper decks looking directly into the upper units to the north of them. Thanks. That's all from me. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much. Well then, Mr. Boston, both you and Bridie Goff, architect, are registered to speak for the applicant. Would either of you like to address the panel?
Yes, thanks, Mr. Chair. Look, I'll just lead off again. Obviously, very similar issues with next door. Again, this morning we sent over swept path analysis and also an amended or an updated garage layout, which I'm just sharing now. It shows the geometry of the garage, the required bicycle storage and bins have actually been located in the garage. It was already 7.3 metres deep, which facilitated the provision of additional storage in the rear of the garage. Now, similar to next door, there is now a 6.27 metre setback proposed to the rear boundary, which means that the first 3.05 metres is the existing right-of-way, and then there's just this open driveway apron, if you like, which will be then a continuation of what is happening on number 3, which we say, if the panel is of a mind to impose a condition that the existing right-of-way and associated terms get extended, we would raise no in principle objection in relation to that. The same issue, or my same response in relation to building height and view sharing. The only other issues that I would like to raise is condition 26, which is the condition in relation to the dilapidation reporting. Should be updated. It references 4/43, which is obviously the subject property.
Yeah.
It should be amended to reference number 3. And as previously presented to the panel, it may well be appropriate to also specifically include reference to the driveway, just to ensure that any impacts are appropriately managed. Similarly, condition 16, which is the construction traffic management plan, the last bullet, which is bullet point on page 165 of the agenda. Again, there's no basement, so we just ask that particular condition be deleted. On the basis of the information that has been provided to the panel this morning, which is the swept path analysis and the additional or updated plan showing the garage geometry and layout, we would ask that conditions 15 and 17 be deleted in the event that the panel is comfortable with that additional documentation. Apart from that, both Bridie and myself are here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Boston, as regards your suggestion in relation to both of these properties that there could be a condition widening the right of way behind them, if the panel is minded to agree to that, could you draft your suggested form of that condition and send it to us?
Yeah, look, I'm happy to draft. I might get some advice from some legal advice just in terms of how best that be drafted. Obviously, there'd be existing terms on the right of way that would need to be brought over. I'm assuming it could be reasonably broad in terms of just indicating what the intention is, and the actual legal mechanics associated with that can be subject to detailing at a later date. But I'm happy to do that for you.
Thank you. And if it were possible to do that in the coming hours, that would be appreciated.
Yeah.
Thank you. Does the panel have any further questions of either Mr. Boston or Ms. Goff?
No.
No.
No questions. Thank you.
Very well. Thank you. Thank you both. Thank you both for your attendance, and Mr. Boston for your submissions.
Thank you.
We'll move on now to the next item on the agenda, which is item 4.5, 397 Condamine Street, Allambie Heights, alterations and additions to a childcare centre. There are no objectors registered to speak. For the applicant, there is one registered speaker, Chris Johnson, a planning advisor for the applicant. Mr. Johnson, we've read your submission. Thank you very much for that. And I noticed that Mr. Horton has asked that you be given some extended time in which to speak. He requested 6 minutes. Bear in mind that if you need any more time, you can apply for it. But would you like to address the panel?
Chair, look, I would definitely like to address the panel. I find this a remarkable report, quite frankly, the 53-page report by Planning Officer Chua, which seems to have tried to find every possible reason to attack this proposal. All it is putting a very thin facade on the existing very large building that sits on the site. But most of the submissions from the planning officer seem to say it should be a low density housing area. And the existing building is way out of scale with that. I'll just show you page 265. Here is this page I'm just putting up on my screen that shows the existing building is way above the scale of the existing housing. So all we're doing is trying to keep the existing building, which seems very sensible in climate change and sustainability terms, and use it as a childcare centre. But we want to get a different character to this building than that of a clubhouse that did have many poker machines in it and was a scene of a very different type of activity inside it to what a childcare centre is. So I think the contradictions I find in the report are very strange. One is page 228. It implies that we should almost keep the existing building because the proposal in respect of important features of existing buildings doesn't respect those features. Now, to respect the features of the existing building means we support a very large building out of scale with the existing environment. Then page 227, it says the proposal is not consistent with the low density residential area. Well, of course it's not, because we're keeping the existing building. It's been there, approved by council many years ago as a existing facility, as a facility in those days when it was built. So it just seems that we are being quite strangely muddling up what the current climate, the low density housing area with this existing building totally out of scale and not really respecting that same ideal. The report, I think, is selective in using planning instruments. For instance, it refers to the childcare guidelines, and you say you've read the report, but just to quickly mention a couple of issues. I mean, it says the childcare planning guidelines are against what we're doing here, but it says in principle 2, good design will use a variety of materials, colours and textures, exactly what it's doing. Contemporary facility design can be distinctive and unique to support innovative approaches to teaching, contribute to the visual interest of the building and character of the local area. These are crucial items that are about trying to be a bit special and a bit different. I mean, it's absolutely ludicrous to not try and untangle these sort of issues. So I think there's a big drama here about how this all works. The report says the proposal is also not in the public interest. But after exhibiting for many weeks in September 23, only one objection was received. Only one objection. The public interest, if it was really a big issue, would have had many people complaining about what was happening here. Surely it is in the public interest to support a childcare centre rather than the clubhouse. It's an empty building. Let's keep the building and keep the scale of actually how it actually works. Surely the public interest to adapt the clubhouse rather than reduce it to the scale of the houses in the area would be a far better way forward. Panel members, simple new skin, it's only half a metre, about 600 or 700 millimetres wide, that's all it is, on the existing building, seems totally out of scale with this minimal development. The two key issues seem to be height and colour, yet the applicant has submitted many alternatives to Planning Officer Chua that reduce the height and match the existing building and do many options for colour, but these have not been included in your report. This is very strange that the applicant's trying to have a dialogue with the planning officer to get a sensible solution, yet it hasn't been included in information to the panel. Council now seem to have added signage as an issue, implying that the visual interest required by the childcare planning guidelines is all about advertising. Surely we want a childcare centre to look friendly, to look distinctive, yet council seems to want it to look like a low density house. It seems very contradictory to me. The existing building is out of kilter with the surrounding low houses, and the new building will be too, because it's adapting the existing building. Some may argue they don't quite like the aesthetics of the colour or the shape, but that's in the eye of the beholder. Tony Owen, who's done this design, is a very respected architect. It's a Lego in pattern that's been placed on the outside of the building. We have put alternative colours, yellow, white, dark browns, toning in with the colours of the environment. All of these are open for discussion, and we're very happy to go along with an approach like that. So I asked the panel members to particularly look at page 265. I just hold it up again here to see the contradiction of this existing building with its existing environment and the new building, which is a friendly, colourful building that sits in the environment. So I believe the panel should actually reject Officer Chua's recommendation to refusal and to approve the application with some conditions that there be a bit of a dialogue, that the height should relate perhaps to the existing building, or at least dialogue around that, and dialogue about the final colours to be negotiated with the council. That's all the two issues really are. The signage is a bit of a furphy. It's really trying to just look like a childcare centre. So I think that covers my presentation. It does seem to me to be a very positive development. A childcare centre shouldn't pretend it's not there. I mean, this is a great asset for the community. A bit of colour is a very strong thing. Children love colour. And I think the mums and dads of those children seeing that building there with a bit of bright colour will be very supportive of what's happening. Only one objection. This building is in the public interest.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Does the panel have any questions?
Yes,
Peter
the information you put in the late report, there's some interesting details in that. One of the concerns I get from the report is the facade treatment. And as an alternative, the same company apparently has one in the area, the giraffe signage on that. Is that the case?
I'm not on that, but that may well be the case. Jackie would know that.
Okay. So
Hi, this is Jackie. I'm here.
Yes.
I'm not sure what the
Do you
question
have
is. We have
another
child
yes,
in the
in
area
Balgowlah,
which has a different style of advertising, which is more subtle colours and has the word giraffe or something on it?
it's a completely different building. That's a heritage building, and it's completely different. You can't compare the two buildings.
Okay.
And I would just add that certainly the existing club building is not a heritage building.
Yes.
Okay. So if there was to be more certainty in consideration of this, how long would it take if there was a discussion with council officers as to more acceptable colours, if if that was objectionable, the current bright colouring, because your alternative this morning shows more subtle colouring. How long would it take to get those finalised?
Well, look, I'll just answer it first off. It depends on how willing the council officer is to do this. I must admit we've found a fairly frustrating process where the council officer seems to be out to stop the project. So I think if the right person was involved, I'm sure we could reach a satisfactory agreement.
And can you keep that Lego stuff within the size of the elevation without exceeding the heights of that building?
Yes, we can. It can match exactly the height of the building. No problem.
Thank you.
Well, Mr. Johnson, I take it that the alternative colour schemes which you have sent through are all acceptable to you.
They're acceptable, but I must say, Jackie, who's on screen here, prefers the brighter colour, and I think I can understand her issue is that this is about young children who enjoy colour, and it would be such an opportunity to have something fairly bright. So if it ended up being such a muted colour scheme that you couldn't see it at all, I think it would be not in the best interests of the broader community.
But all the alternative colour schemes you've sent through are acceptable, I take it.
We could make that work, yes.
Yes, thank you. Just for the record, Jackie has been referred to a number of times, and she's not a registered speaker, but just for the record, who are you referring to? Who is Jackie?
Jackie is the owner of Double Arts Properties, which is the owner of the preschool. She is building a number of preschools and is greatly committed to increasing more childcare across the Sydney Basin.
Thank you. That's Jackie Scheinberg, correct?
Correct. Yes, it is.
Thank you. Does the panel have any other questions?
No.
My only question was, could we follow the profile of the existing building? And that's been answered, yes. So yes. I'm happy with that.
Okay.
Very good. Well, thank you, Mr. Johnson, for your assistance.
Thank you.
We'll move on now to the next item on the agenda. Actually, that I think concludes all the public meeting items.
Mr. Biscoe,
yes,
you have, unfortunately, we need to go to item 4.4, which is 49 Pittwater Road, Manly.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Item 4.4, 49 Pittwater Road, Manly, DA 2023/1458 for demolition works and construction of a studio with associated landscaping. Now, in relation to that one, there is one objector, and that's one that has been recommended for refusal because of absence of owner's consent. We have one speaker registered, and that is Erin Mulvey, an objector of 47 Pittwater Road, Manly. Is Erin Mulvey there?
Yes, hello, Chairman. I'm here. And
thank
apologies.
you. Would you? That's all right. Thank you. Would you like to address the panel?
I would, and I'm so sorry. I forgot that my camera doesn't work since I went swimming in the ocean with it. So I'm so sorry. I will be very brief, as I realise I'm all for progress, but I've just got three concerns with the proposal. The first one is that it's been recommended to be a compost toilet, and that area floods, and I'm concerned about the diseases that will occur when it does flood, and obviously the runoff into my building. Also, it has been put there as bike storage at the top. I just don't feel that the building is fireproof at all, especially if it has electric bikes as part of the storage. And we all know that there's been issues with that. And my place obviously isn't very fireproof either. I'm just also concerned about the height, which I've tried to negotiate, and I will lose sunlight, airflow, and it will increase the mould of the laneway as the laneway has adjacent buildings, so there's not much sunlight already there. And they're the only three things. If I don't know how this process works, but I'm willing to negotiate, but so far haven't been able to have much success.
Yes, thank you. And do I understand that it is for those reasons that you have declined to give owners consent to this proposal?
Yes, and I've asked to meet with them regularly to negotiate, but to no success.
Thank you. Very well. Does the panel have any questions?
No questions.
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Ms. Mulvey, for your assistance.
Thank you to the chair.
I think we've now concluded all the matters on the public meeting agenda. The procedure now, in accordance with our usual procedure, is for the panel to adjourn into a private session shortly to consider its decision and reasons in relation to all the matters that have been canvassed at the public meeting, and also consider the non-public meeting items. Usually the panel is able to reach a decision and to on the day, and the minutes of its decisions are published on the council's website within 24 hours. So we'll now adjourn. It is just a fraction after 1 p.m. and we'll adjourn till 1:30 p.m. when the panel will reconvene in closed session. This public meeting is now closed.